It's episode 11 of The Lab, and we dive into the second edition of our mechanical breakdown series evaluating the swing of Philadelphia Phillies outfielder Bryce Harper. Very excited to do this episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast for new episodes every Monday at 9 a.m. wherever you get your podcast. We're now on Pandora as well, so be sure to subscribe and get all new content every Monday at 9 a.m. And if you have some questions, you may have those, submit them to our email address, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Again, that is jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to another edition, episode number 11 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. I'm Jim, and joining me as always, renowned hitting coach, professional evaluator, my former coach, friend and co-host Jake Epstein. Jake, how are you? Good morning.
And good morning to you. Yeah, it's good to kind of get after this. I'm excited for the Bryce Harper breakdown. He's such a exciting player to watch and polarizing young man, you know, with how competitive he is on the field, that it'll be kind of fun to break down, you know, what he does mechanically today.
Yeah, it's our second edition of our mechanical breakdown series. We did Christian Yelich a few weeks ago. Go back and check that out in the archives. And today we are doing one of the highest paid players in the league right now, and Bryce Harper, about to enter his second year with the Phillies. I do want to bring something up to you first, though. Baseball is back, for those who don't know, in case you're living under a rock. Major League Baseball is coming back July 23rd, 24th. That'll be the opening day series type deal. And I just want to, excuse me for getting on my soapbox for a second, but I think, as you and I know, we're cut from the same cloth. And I think as we talk about hitting every week, talk about baseball every week, we get into a routine. And I think any U.S. citizen, any American, no matter what your gender, nationality, race is, I think everybody, this is the way this country is built. We get into a routine, and we like that routine whether we admit it or not. And I think subconsciously the reason people are so excited that baseball is back is because we want that normalcy again with everything that's been going on the last few months in the world. And I think that this is the time, and no disrespect to the NBA, which I think it's great that that's back too. And I've always said basketball players are the best athletes in the world. Hockey players, the NHL coming back. I'm excited about that. I love the NHL playoffs. But I think this is baseball's time, June, July, where it starts to peak the interest, and then it goes down a little bit and then back up. And I think people who are excited that baseball is back aren't just excited that it's back playing again on the field, but they're getting back to that normalcy that they wanted so badly here the last few months. So I'm personally, for me, I'm very excited that within the next couple of weeks, rather than turning on the news or watching a show from the 90s, a sitcom, which, by the way, had probably the 90s of the best sitcoms, go out there.
For sure.
I'm excited to watch an actual baseball game again.
Yeah, I mean, we learn from watching baseball games. I have all my students watch games and listen to the announcers and the color commentators that are, giving us game inside information, and people don't realize it. The color guys that are in there, those guys, they know their stuff. They've got years and years and years of experience of being in that batter's box and being on that field. And if we listen to what they say, they spew out such diamonds, of quality information. I mean, there's also some, maybe not so great information, but I'll tell you what, we learn. And I always ask kids, do you watch games? No, we don't watch games. Yeah. Well, that's how you learn the game. That's how you learn to run the bases. That's how you learn cutoff men. That's how you learn count awareness or why guys are pitching you a certain way. And the more you can watch, it's so accessible now with like MLB.com. You can go on the line and watch games that were yesterday if you wanted to. So yeah, I'm excited because selfishly, I love to watch baseball in the summer. I think it's a great way to wind down a day. I think it's kind of fun, with the kids, and you're out there playing with them and they're out on the field. Now all of a sudden we can watch the best athletes in the world, doing it on a daily basis. It'll be fun. It's going to be a total sprint. We're going to have teams that I saw a text the other day. I'm good friends with Jace Tingler, who's the new Padres manager, and somebody on their social media was like, "This is the first time the Padres have been tied for first place with only 60 games left in the season in quite some time." Right. So, but you're going to see young teams like that with all these young talent and energy just get after it for 60 games, and I think it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. You always profess this. Some parents say, hey, don't watch Major League Baseball. Well, they're not doing it right. No, you should. I mean, that's the opposite, because you learn from the best. You want to be the best. You want to play at the highest level. You learn from that. I mean, gosh, I think taking away these last few months, what I take away from it is that I still watch a decent amount, old games, whatever the case may be. But I never realized how much baseball I actually watch between work, between just my leisure time, between being at the gym and maybe listening to the audio broadcast. I never realized how much baseball really consumes my life. But that, to me, is how you gain a ton of wisdom when you're around it so much, like you and I are. But then you watch as much and as many innings as we do. It's that's how you learn. It's irreplaceable. It
is. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. You mentioned, though, about these 60 games and the race to the finish and how it's kind of going to be a sprint. I want to get your thoughts on a couple of new rules. First, the universal DH and a runner starting at second come extra innings. And right now that happens in the minor leagues. And for better or for worse, I think it's actually a good thing because of the amount of necessary things that have to happen throughout the next day or that night with players moving up, going down, whatever the case may be. A lot of moving parts. But the first thing I want to ask you, what do you feel about the players and how their bodies will react to this extra time off? Like, to me, players go into spring training because they're trained all year round. I still think they have some nicks. Like, for example, I may go into the weight room or the gym and I may have a sore hamstring, but I'm still squatting and I still have the mobility to squat with a lot of strength. I feel that's a lot of major leaguers too, that they have those nicks and pains. But now we've had that second wave of an off season that now maybe it's given them some time to heal, especially the older guys too. Do you feel that this will help players? Maybe we'll see less injuries? On the pitching side, I can't really speak to that. But on the position player side, what do you think we'll see? I mean, are guys healed up now? Will this actually benefit older players? Or do we hold the risk here, outside of COVID-19 possibly being added to the injured list, taking that out of play? I'm talking about physically, the muscles in the body. How do you think the body will react with some of these guys?
I think coming out of the break, they're going to feel great, but the body's still the body, and you only move certain ways when you're in game situations. When you're rounding a base, or you're sliding into a base, or you're busting it out of the box on a bunt, or a chopper or something like that. So I think an older body's an older body, and unless it's stress tested, we'll still see injuries, and I think that guys will definitely play with those injuries.
Yeah,
a lot more than they normally have. Oh, it's 162 games. I don't mind taking 15. For that part of it, it'll be stable. I also think the runner on second, I think that's a great idea. I think there's that helps with travel the next day, right? When guys they got to get on a bus, depending on where they're going, or a plane. It's gonna help with travel, with the condensed season. So I'm kind of cool with that. I think the DH saves time with double switches and pitching changes. So we'll see if that kind of solidifies, time constraints on games. it'll be interesting to see the commercial breaks, and see if that changes, this year as well, if there's still a demand for that or if games will be faster. I'm a National League truist. I like the double switch. I like the strategy that the managers have to create. I think it's part of the game, and it's been part of the game for a long time. So I'm kind of okay with the DH for this year. And hey, we'll see what it's like. Why not give it a test run? But I think it really brings in a cool factor of baseball and a manager having to think 3 and 4 steps ahead or 3 or 4 innings ahead and what he may want to do in a certain situation and who he has in the bullpen and who he has on the bench.
Yeah. We talked last week about we finished up our part 2 of our history hitting book. I'm sure we'll do part 3, part 4, part 5 down the line. But we didn't really talk much last week about Ken Griffey Jr., which I was kind of surprised about. And last Sunday on MLB Network, on Father's Day, they had a Ken Griffey Jr. Montage of all of his greatest moments. They had the home run derby that he won in 1999. I want to share something I found from Baseballer. Again, this was on Facebook. I took a picture of it for you. I want to just throw these numbers out at you. These numbers might prove that Griffey Jr. was one of the best players, if not, at least in the top 5 best baseball players of all time. 2,781 hits, 630 home runs, 1,836 runs batted in, 22 total seasons. I think with him, if he didn't get hurt so much, he may have had the chance to probably break Hank Aaron's record. What do you think?
Yeah. He did have the longevity, for sure, 22 seasons. That's what it takes, to break any kind of records is longevity. He was susceptible to getting hurt.
Yeah, that was the most.
He probably could have gotten 3,000 hits. Yeah. Definitely if he didn't get hurt. I mean, that checks another box, right? But especially for his generation. Yeah. Anybody that has their own shoes, it's usually like a good sign that they're, they're the leader, they're at the pinnacle of the game at a certain time.
Yeah. He was one of my favorite players growing up. Well, coming up, we're going to talk about our topic today, Bryce Harper and his swing breakdown. We're going to be doing a swing breakdown. Again, the way to follow that, we're going to put it on YouTube later, the Epstein Hitting YouTube page that you can follow along with while you're listening to this, or not. Just listen to Jake and I break down Bryce's swing with 2 separate clips. But I want to talk about the Epstein Online Hitting Academy, which is gaining some new members. And I was looking at it this morning. There's a lot of stuff on there with annotations. I think I said that right. And some videos that explain drills that can help a hitter get better. And the pricing is absolutely tremendous and certainly affordable.
Yeah, so the Epstein Online Academy is, was built so that I could communicate with my players that were not in the area. So that if I had players on the East Coast, they could submit videos every week of what they were doing and what they were working on. I could provide them with drill plans, customized drill plans of videos I wanted them to do to fix certain things. So we saw a spike in that as soon as the podcast really kicked off a couple of months ago. We saw a big spike. So I want to thank all you podcast listeners that have taken part in the online academy. And it's fun for me, to be able to have relationships, because essentially what happens is I end up meeting those people at certain times. There's a girl in California that was sending in videos when she was 8 years old. And we had been working online, and her swing is amazing. She's actually quite popular now on her name's Audrey, and she's on Twitter, and she has many followers because she's like the greatest. I think she's 9 or 10 now. Player, she's amazing defensively, offensively. She's the hardest worker ever, right? But I finally got to meet them. I happened to be in San Diego doing visiting family for Thanksgiving, and I was doing some lessons, and here it is. This girl I've only seen, virtually sending in swings from her garage. Now we got to meet. And pretty cool thing. So, yes, absolutely. Players send in their videos. I do a complete analysis, usually next to a big leaguer, showing them what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. And then what we'll do is I'll figure out, hey, this is the most important thing for us to fix right now. Here's your drill plan. I only want you to do these drills this week. I want you to do 75 of this drill, 100 of this drill, so on and so forth. Then send me a video next week doing the drills. I want to make sure you're doing them correctly. And then once they start performing that, then all of a sudden we get into more live swings. And then maintenance is, I want game swings. I want to see how you react in a game. I want to see, does it match up what you're doing in BP? So it's been an awesome resource for my players around the country, and then for new players trying to get exposed to kind of what I teach.
Yeah, that is EpsteinHitting.com, the online hitting academy. Again, there's a whole overview, sample annotations, testimonials. There's everything there. It's very easy, especially working remotely with one of the best hitting instructors around. So again, that is EpsteinHitting.com, and click on the Online Hitting Academy tab. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. New episodes every Monday at 9 a.m. We're also on social media at Epstein Hitting on Twitter and Instagram, at Jim Tara. Submit us your questions, and you can also email us too, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. That's jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. We won't have any time for questions today, but we will get to them down the line here. A lot to talk about with Bryce Harper and his swing breakdown. Just to give you sort of a introduction to Bryce, if you don't know who he is, six-time All-Star. By the way, new dad. He's going to be a new dad. He already has a little boy, a son,
nice.
And he's about to be a father to a girl. He's about to be a girl dad. He posted that. I saw. It came up on my Instagram feed that he's going to be a girl dad. Him and his wife, Kayla, will be having a daughter. So congratulations to the Harper family. Bryce was the first overall draft selection by the Washington Nationals in 2010 after Steven Strasburg. He came up with Washington in 2012, so he pretty much blew through the minor league system, which you kind of expect with number one overall picks. Came up in 2012, made his debut in Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium. Quite the place to make your debut. He had to fly across the country to do it. He was the Rookie of the Year that year. Made an all-star appearance, kind of had a little bit of a gaffe, if you will, in left field where a fly ball went over his head. He misplayed it badly in Kansas City, but nevertheless, still an all-star Rookie of the Year. What were your thoughts when he first came up? I saw a kid who, and he was a kid at the time, who still didn't grow into his body. He still looked like a college player. He ran like a college player. His body language was like a college player, and the way he sprinted in every facet. He just didn't have the wisdom, which that's everybody. That's nothing wrong with that. It's as you get older in any walk of life, you gain that wisdom. But he also, his body, he wasn't as muscular as he is now. He didn't fill out, and the body still hasn't matured yet. But nevertheless, he was a tremendous athlete. What were your thoughts when he first came up?
Well, so polarizing. I mean, when he graduated from high school early, he was, highly, highly touted. Everybody knew he was going to be great, from the time he was like 15 years old. He was dominating. He was, even though he wasn't massive, he was an early mature.
Yeah.
He hit balls really far. There's videos of him, swinging a 35-ounce bat or a 40-ounce bat when he was like 15 years old. They got a lot of traction. And, when he came up, he was, on a scale of 1 to 10, he was a 12. He was so aggressive.
Right.
He was trying to, he had to prove himself. That's a lot of pressure. And he was probably 19 years old. A lot of guys fly through the minor leagues coming out of college, right? This guy flies through the minor leagues coming out of high school that he graduated early. I guess he went to junior college for a year or so first after he graduated high school early. But he did. He ran hard, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want people to think that, big leaguers dog it. They play 162 games, so they have to be a little bit more cautious with their body. College players, they're going to stick their nose in the dirt and they're going to run as hard as they can. They're going to slide as hard as they can. They're going to run into walls. They're going to, because that's what it is. You're playing for your team, right? And you're going to do anything you can for that team. And sometimes in pro ball, for better or worse, you're playing for money, right? And you're playing for a contract. And, maybe, if you pop a hamstring or a groin and you miss 20 games, that might be, 3 home runs that you hit, and you end up with 27 instead of 30. And then that was the barrier to maybe get you $2 million more the next year in your contract or arbitration.
Right.
So
yeah.
Everything leads to something else, in Major League Baseball. But, I heard a story. He was at a showcase at USC, Southern Cal, and they have parking structure in right field. And anyway, he was just going right balls to the walls, and he's throwing. He's a catcher right at this time, and so he's doing pop time. So he airmails one into center field like during something, and he picks up a ball. He's so upset, and he throws it into the parking garage. 385 or 400 feet away, and that's what all the scouts talked about. They didn't talk about anything else about his bad throws to center field. They're like, oh, my God, did you see how far he threw that ball? Yeah. And, that's just the kind of guy he was, and still is, right? He's uber competitive. He's going to give you 100% when he's out there. And that's probably why he got paid. Nobody has to worry about him dogging anything. They don't have to worry about, antics off the field for the most part. He hasn't had any run-ins there. So, hey, if this guy can stay healthy, he's as good as it gets.
Yeah, I was going to say that his emotions always seem to run very, very high. I think he absolutely loves this game, and he treats it like it is his job. He understands every facet that he does in BP, in warming up, stretching, mobility work. He has fun doing it, but he understands that it leads to the game. And I think, again, like you mentioned too, the off-the-field antics, it just isn't there. And off-the-field antics can come in any form. I mean, they can come in the clubhouse, in giving front office members a problem, tweeting the wrong things. You never see that with him. He has very, very high character, was raised well. And I think if there's one knock on him that some people may say, well, he is sometimes misunderstood. I could see that. But I think overall, the high character, and he's just very uber competitive, like you mentioned, and very intense. So in 2013 and 2014, there were kind of some lull years there. In 2013, at 274, 20 bombs, 58 knocked in. 2014, 273, arguably his worst year, I think. It was just unproductive across the board. 13 home runs, 32 runs bad, and that was it, a career low. There was some talk there that he would be sent to the minors and try to figure things out, but then he came back. The Nationals actually ended up making the postseason that year, lost to the Giants, Bruce Bochy, your friend. Mm-hmm. But in 2015, he came back, and you saw that body transformation where he wasn't that skinny 19, 20-year-old kid that we saw in Dodger Stadium in 2012. We saw a kid now who really turned into a man. He grew. He got more muscular, and it showed. I mean, he was faster, more mobile. He was quicker. He had more wisdom, just in general, of how to attack pitchers. He was an MVP that year in 2015. He led the league in runs, home runs, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS. Analytically, he was in top 5 in most important categories. I don't know. That 2015 year, I look back on it and I say, wow. That was when he came up. That's what people were expecting from Bryce Harper.
And then nobody pitched to him after that.
Right.
Is essentially what happened. He didn't have a ton of protection in that lineup. Yeah. Because Soto didn't come in for a couple years after that, right? Maybe 2 years after that when Soto made his debut. 3 years after that. So, he all of a sudden he was getting pitched around. He was walking. He got, quasi Barry Bonds treatment for a while. And then that plays with your head. You start chasing and trying to do too much and putting the team on your back. And that's a tough situation. For every great player, there's always somebody else driving that great player that has a great season. You talk about Mantle and Maris. You talk about McGuire and Sosa. Guys typically have a running mate that they're competing against, in that lineup. And a couple, after he won that MVP year, there really wasn't that driving force. Zimmerman started to get hurt. Who was the other guy? The big outfielder, Worth. Was Worth there?
He was starting to wind down. He did have Anthony. Yeah. He did have Anthony Rendon, but Rendon wasn't at his peak quite yet.
No,
not quite yet. I mean, he was. No. Bryce was kind of the centerpiece of the Washington Nationals there for a very, very long time. And I think last year, that when they won the World Series, you thought of Anthony Rendon, but who did you really think of as the centerpiece of the Washington Nationals? I mean, you could have Max Scherzer, but on the offensive side,
their pitching staff, I would say.
I mean, you kind of just saw a collection of guys there that are really good players, and Juan Soto's sort of turning into that main piece. But when Bryce exited, it was kind of like, okay, now there's a collection of guys there. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, in 2015 and 2016, through 2018, he was an all-star every year, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Last year, first season with the Phillies. This offseason, he struggled a bit. The whole team struggled, but this past offseason, he was working, I saw some videos online of a toe tap. He was working on the toe tap a little bit, trying to slow things down. And he still posts videos about it, about the toe tap. And, I mean, gosh, anytime, you see him in the cage and you hear that sound coming off the bat, my God, it sounds like a bullet. It really does. Mm-hmm. It's very, very loud. There's a different sound to it, as scouts would say. Before we get into the video, when he's going well, what really sticks out to you in his swing?
Usually breaking balls. He's sitting on breaking balls more. Mm-hmm. And I feel that usually by sitting on breaking balls, meaning you're anticipating breaking balls, you'll slow your rhythm down. The rhythm essentially is, from your stance to your load into your rear leg, and then your leg kick and stride to heel plant. So that's really your rhythm is from your stance to heel plant is considered rhythm, which encapsulates load and stride. It's slower, right? And that can be said for any player that's jumpy. So, you go back and, I'll trace back when I remember Harper seeing him the first time when he was like in high school. Mm-hmm. Huge legs, huge leg kick, super wide base, long stride, big weight shift, but stayed back. Used all that energy to support 180 pounds, right?
Sure.
And hit balls 400 feet. Then he goes into the minor leagues, whatever. I see him come to the big league camp a year or two later, mm-hmm. and he's got a no stride, kind of just actually like an early stride. He just gets his foot down early, and then he tries to drift into it and hit. And I'm like, oh, you can't do that. Like you can't take someone that has big rhythm and a big stride and take it away because you feel that he's being overmatched with stuff and his timing. You have to let that player fail with that timing, mm-hmm. with that rhythm, and try to figure it out because that's in his DNA. It'd be like Juan Marichal not having a super high leg kick, when he was pitching. Like that's him. That's what made him who he was. Or Nolan Ryan, how high he would bring his knee up. And, that was Harper. So I'm like, well, that's not going to last. Well, he failed miserably with it. And then the next time I saw him come up, he was back to what he looked like in high school, and he was awesome. So the fact that he wants to put a toe tap in to help with his rhythm and timing, I'll be very anxious to see how that works. A toe tap typically happens before the ball, before the pitcher really starts to break their hand. So I would consider it kind of a load versus a stride, meaning It happens when a player loads their weight into the back foot. Yeah. Then they'll typically toe tap, but it doesn't affect a lot of the stride going forward because you're still toe tapping back, assuming that's what the toe tap is, and it's not like he's getting his foot down early again. It's He's bringing his foot back and tapping and then going forward. It's a very complex move because you're adding a piece of it. Now, if you do it early, it's not really a big deal. It's just kind of part of your stride. You're just moving sooner. So it's probably why he's trying to do it, to slow everything down because he gets big. And that's what's kind of cool on this video that I have here that we'll look at again on the YouTube link is I have one video of him taking BP, mm-hmm. and we'll see what he's working on during BP. There's also a video of him doing pregame BP, like in the tunnel, what he does. He does top hand. And it looks like he's kind of chopping down with his top hand. He does bottom hand. He does, a couple other things. And then he goes into his full BP. So I don't know if it was on MLB.com a couple of years ago, but it's a really cool little piece of a look in at how a guy prepares for a game. What he does. He doesn't spend a lot of time on it. He probably did, 6 or 7 top hands, 6 or 7 kind of just a barrel throw kind of drill, getting his hands loose. And then he kind of works in his legs nice and slowly, and then he gets big with the legs. And anyway, we'll be able to see in these swings, one's a game swing home run where he's actually late, which is great for him. He was late on a fastball. He had to get his foot down sooner, even though he had a big stride. Mm-hmm. And then we can look at the upper body mechanics as well, because that's what gets his swing plane consistent when he's going so well.
Sorry, just had to cut in with this. Major League Baseball is back. But the minor leagues, MILB, is kind of in limbo, unfortunately. Nevertheless, though, there's great Dunedin Blue Jays gear available at the J Shop by logging on to DunedinBlueJays.com. This podcast is available all over the world. We have listeners in 3 different countries, so obviously you can't go to Dunedin, Florida, and go to the J Shop and pick out the item you'd like, but the online store is tremendous. By the way, the Dunedin Blue Jays, in case you don't know, they're the Advanced Day affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays, and the gear is just sensational. I love it. But what makes it so great, and I'm not just saying that because I work for the Blue Jays organization, I really do mean it. I have a ton of gear, and what makes it so great is that it brings its own flavor with that Blue Jays royal blue and feel to it. Hats, jerseys, shirts, toques, that means beanies here in the USA, keychains, pens, you name it. I mean, it's there. So log on to DunedinBlueJays.com, click on the J Shop tab if you have time today, tomorrow, whenever, and select your items. Okay, sorry about that. Let's get back to the show. Well, the 2 videos we have, and again, log on to our YouTube page, Epstein Hitting YouTube page, I should say. That'll be up there. The mechanical breakdown for both videos will be up there a little bit later, so you can just follow along with us here. But the 2 swings we have, the side home run, the open side, it's in 2018 when he's with the Nationals, and then his spring BP last year in his first season with the Phillies. So it was around that March time last year. But let's start with 2018 here with his home run swing. You and I kind of spoke about it prior to the show here, about that swing, about his legs and his lower body. And looking at the video here, boy, there's a lot of open seats in Nationals Park here. My gosh, this must have been when they were. I think this is when they were eliminated from postseason contention, 2018. Boy, that was a bad year for the Nationals in 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was very.
It wasn't a good year to be a Nationals fan, but I think they made up for it.
Yeah, they did. They did indeed.
Yeah.
But so with Bryce Harper here, I'm going to let you take it here. I see a lot of things, but the one thing is looking at the lower body, the legs are very close together, especially at the point of contact. You see the hip snap, but the legs are really close together. But he does make up for it, as you mentioned to me off air. How does he make up for it?
He does it by, getting to his stride early, getting to the top of his stride early. So, Jim, I'm going to adjust the audio on this. So give me 1 second because I want to see if.
And what I see here is that I paused it. And again, this video's with the Nationals, and it's a home run. And I paused it at his torque position. And I'm just looking, and I always look from the ground up. I see that front foot, that front right foot, slightly open, 45-degree angle. The heel is planted. The back heel is up. The torque is there. You can just see the separation between the lower body and the upper body. The jersey is stretched out. The hands are back well. Front shoulder is down. I mean, this is pretty. You talk about the legs being close together, but this is pretty picture perfect. It's picturesque in what I see in his swing right here. And I think this is a great representation of a major league hitter getting to the proper torque position to hit a ball a long way. I mean, I'm looking, again, I can't get my eyes off that front foot. I can't get my eyes off the back foot. The ground force that he's generating, his ability to sit in his legs, the front shoulder being down, the hands being up, the knob of the bat pointing to the catcher's feet, and just ready to uncoil and rotate around that spine. But that's sort of where I have it paused here, and I'll let you take it the rest of the way. But maybe you've gotten to that torque where he is on the torque position. What's your take on his torque here? I mean, it's tremendous.
It's perfect, and he's built for it. I mean, that's guys that are a little bit more wiry, right? They're not quite as thick as maybe a David Ortiz or back in the day like a Jeff Bagwell. Mm-hmm. They're gonna, or even a Vlad Jr., right, isn't gonna create as much torque as someone like Bryce or Griffey or Williams, dating back. So, yes, this is perfect. I was doing annotations all morning for my online academy people, and 4 out of 5 of them could not get to this position. They got to this position with their legs, but what happens is their front shoulder, instead of their front shoulder staying down and their hands being back, their front shoulder was up and their hands were already down here coming through the strike zone. Well, sure. That's because we don't get any stretch, right? So if I put these angles on here, his chest is facing there, his hips are facing there, perpendicular to his hips.
Yeah.
Most big leaguers are 35 to 40 degrees there. So this is always a checkpoint for me if a player can get there. Pretty much every advanced player that I look at. So if I'm scouting a college guy or a high school guy that's going to go pretty high in the draft, or even a younger international 13 to 15-year-old, I would say 95% of those athletes get to this position. Where if I'm working with players that are, say, 10 to about 14, sometimes older, I would say maybe 20% of them get to this position. That's it. So it's something that we stress a lot when we're training players in the lab or I'm doing the online stuff. This is crucial. This is checkpoint number one. If we don't get to a good position here where our upper body is back as our lower body opens, we're in trouble. So as you were saying, Jim, you can see his front foot's we talked about this ground force move. Usually about 60 degrees is ideal. 60 degrees means this knee's going to open. That was the wrong tool there. Sorry about that. But
the front knee,
when this opens, the front knee is open. Yeah, that front knee is going to face, towards the, down the left field, or for him down the left field line, while keeping the hands back. A lot of players get to this position with their legs, but their front shoulder's up and to the right. So another thing to point out here is his top hand. This is the highest of really any big leaguer that I see at launch. We probably talked about this before with other players, but and Yelich, most players, the top of their top hand at swing launch will be at the low point, the chin, and at, most commonly will be kind of at the ear here. Okay, you can see he's almost 3 or 4 inches higher than that. So what does that help him do? It helps him keep his back shoulder up and his front shoulder down.
Yeah. I'm looking at his, and I see you drawing the green lines with the chest, the green line. You're pointing it back towards that back foot, and then of course the hips. You're pointing that green line, drawing that green line towards that front foot. You're demonstrating torque and the separation there that he's. By the way, I just want to say, maybe it's just me. I don't like using the word separation when it comes to hitting. I know people do, and I'm sure you do too. But I like torque. I don't know why. I like the word torque. I think it helps. It better demonstrates, at least for me, what a hitter is trying to do there. But I look at that, and I mean, to me, it's a pretty ideal position. Here's the one question I have though for you. He does have his front shoulder pointed down more. And you mentioned that players, you see them, they struggle getting that front shoulder down, which limits their torque. How do they work on that? What can they, as much as you can tell me without giving away all your secrets and taking people away from the online hitting academy and the lab, how do they fix that? Because at times I struggled with that too.
Oh, man, we have so many different ways to fix it. You almost have to trick players into doing it. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll just do dry moves. I'll have them take their stride and plant and stop and feel that position. What is your body telling you there? What does that feel like? Front foot's down, hands are still back. Okay. Now can we take that feel into a full swing? And you know what? You don't know unless you put slow motion video on them. You don't know if they're doing it right or not. I can't look at somebody full speed and say, oh, that was better.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to film every single swing. It's a very tedious process, but we have different tricks that we do with players with how we throw them the ball, maybe how they start their stride, what they're thinking about with their front shoulder, with their chest, maybe breaking things up into 2 different parts of the swing of the drill. So there are different tricks. And in time, players get it. I mean, I've had players working on that move for a year, and all of a sudden, maybe, 53 weeks later, they get it. You just don't know. And then sometimes players will get it, 2 weeks down the line.
Sure. So if we keep going here with the swing, again, we're looking at the Nationals video, for those listening, of him hitting a home run in 2018. For those watching along, we're double-sided here on the Epstein YouTube hitting page and the Facebook page. What do you think of his bat lag here in the video clip of the Nationals when he's swinging with the Nationals here? I think the bat lag's pretty good. I guess, let me back that up a little bit. That pitch looks like it's an inside, middle-in type pitch. Kind of.
It is.
Thigh high.
Let's trace this back. So if we watch his stride, normally, Harper's he's going to reach out with this leg and probably get to about there. He's going to have a much bigger hip slide during his stride, but you can see how he just kind of drops it short. Yeah. So if we draw this space between his feet in the torque position, even though he's wide enough here, he's usually way longer down here at the bottom. Yeah. Okay, so he definitely saw this pitch. He recognized this pitch. He got to about right here, and he's like, you get to the top of his stride, and he's like, okay, well, that's middle in. I better get my foot down quicker. That's why having a stride is so beautiful. Okay, it's because when you can learn how to control the stride, you can drop it quickly, which he does better than anyone. And more importantly, if it's an off-speed pitch, you can keep it in the air longer and buy yourself another maybe 12 inches on letting that ball travel. Now, that is only done by having a stride when you're 6 years old, 7 years old, always having that stride. If you never stride, I have players now I'm working with that are high school players. They've always had a fast, short stride, and now they're like 16, 17 years old. We can't change that. That's going to be so difficult to change because they don't know how to control the stride. It's just been almost part of their swing versus part of their pre-swing. So, that's the first thing that we do here. We notice this pitch is more inside because he drops short. He drops short with his base. Sure. Now, if we take him to his short approach position, which is, we talked a lot about this with Yelich. Okay, this is usually from when heel plant happens to this position is where things go wrong. Sure. And if you look here, this is when his chest starts to open. Okay, so we're seeing it on both of these. Notice how the knob of the bat is before or in front of his back elbow. So there's zero drag. Look how close the bat is to his head here in the BP swing for sure. Even here, that's really close. The bat's still very vertical. He hasn't dumped that barrel. He's not dropping it back here towards the catcher. It's still up. Yeah. And then he continues to his bat lag position, which is what you were talking about here. That's pretty good. What I look for in bat lag is the knob equal to the elbow when the bat is equidistant from the camera. If you look here on the right, you're going to see more of a Yelich move. Okay, notice how he's steeper, right? His barrel stays up longer. He's pulling the knob a little bit more out in front. Now, maybe this pitch was further away from him, but that's about the same part of the swing. So notice how his barrel is out. So you can see in BP, he's trying to flight the ball down now, meaning he's trying to swing more level. Why is he doing that? Is it because he normally swings up too much, so he has to think, I'm going to swing down a little bit too much? Is he just trying to hit line drives up the middle? I don't know what he's doing, but the key is he can do both. If he needs to keep his barrel up and stay on top, awesome. If he needs to drop his barrel more, which he's not doing here, but say he got to this position, his barrel was down here, okay, I'm cool if you drop your barrel like that. I'm cool if you keep your barrel up as long as you can control it. And if I say do this, you can do that. And if I say drop it more, you can drop it more. That's the sign of a hitter that's in control and can make on-the-fly adjustments. Otherwise, you're just a robot. And you take the same swing and you only hit a pitch in a certain location at a certain speed.
Yeah. Yeah, that bat leg, I'm fascinated by it. On the one on the video on the left, the BP video. Yeah.
So you can see it here, if he releases the lag, okay, so it's just, kind of what you're talking about, Jim. He's got the knob way out there and he's got the barrel way back here. Now watch how far the knob moves compared to the barrel, right? So the knob moved 4 inches. He released it to the right and the barrel moved, kind of like this. So that's called speed right there. That's width.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he kind of releases it out in front. You can see he hits kind of a low line drive. And he has this little shoulder shrug move, which forces you to roll your wrists. Now, rolling your wrists will actually increase the barrel with a huge risk of topping and rolling over a ball. If you can roll your wrists not over but around, it's a very cool way to do it. But it's very difficult and risky. Williams did it. Yeah. Williams, this last-minute acceleration that looked very similar to Harper here, let's go to the one on the right, okay, where he's going to kind of, Harper actually, he didn't roll his wrists at all. You can see the difference here in this position. If I bring Harper on the left to extension a little more, see how his right arm goes down and his left shoulder goes up?
Oh, yeah.
He kind of shrugs. It's a very small move, but that just means he had a little bit more left forearm, left hand in it. But if you look at the swing planes themselves here, when he makes contact, so if he had a blast motion sensor on, okay, I mean, this isn't a perfect angle, but I would say, there's his barrel and there's the ball. Maybe he swings up close to 5 to 7 degrees, okay? If we look at this game swing, which will be a little bit more level, it looks like, because it was on a tripod, I'm sure, and he swings like this is more like maybe 10 degrees up, okay? So maybe that's the difference. But if you notice this pitch coming in, the pitch is only, 3 or 4 degrees dropping, okay? So he actually got underneath this. So if we draw this line to the catcher, okay, so this is, say here, that's 4-degree drop, which is a pretty good fastball. It's a 92 plus, 93 plus fastball. If he tried to hit it here, his barrel's, oh man, I hit the wrong button. All right, now we got to redraw. Okay, take 2. What do we say? 4 degrees.
4 degrees.
So if we look at his barrel, he's a little bit under here. Okay, so he's not going to hit that pitch. He's going to foul it straight back. If he goes here, his barrel's here. He's probably going to foul it back a little bit higher. And then, boom, watch his barrel come right back up, and then he hits it right here. Okay, so his happy zone on this was more out in front. It was like from here to here, I would say. Okay, so if he was a little late, he would have fouled that off, and no one would have seen this swing because no one would have recorded it if he fouled it up and back. Okay, so he was a little, he did have a little tiny, we talked about holes in the swing, right? Maybe just a little tiny, 2-inch hole, where here on the left, when he's hitting a little line drive, he's right on plane. His, if we draw this pitch, I know it's a little bit blurry, but here's the pitch coming in. And if we draw, what was it, about like that? Notice how he gets on here. See how his barrel never gets below the green line?
Yeah.
Like it did. He gets to the green line, and it's on the green line, and then it's still on the green line, and then it's still on the green line. So he's on plane kind of between those two circles without going under and back up like he did on the right. So, that's what he's probably work on, because he knows, hey, once in a while I drop my barrel a little too much. Is that bad? No, that's not bad. It put himself underneath. And so what is that going to mean? Well, it means he's going to hit the bottom of the ball a little bit more. Okay. Where this one here is more of a Yelich swing plane. So what does Yelich do? He's going to get into his legs more to make that ball go up. Okay, that's why this ball didn't go up. It left it on the exact same trajectory it came in.
Yeah.
Because he hit the exact middle of the ball and he was perfectly on plane. So really kind of good to see what guys do in BP. I posted something on my Twitter page. Nelson Cruz, probably in his basement or his garage or something, hitting off a hack attack, and just he's not trying to hit the top of the cage. He's just trying to pretty much do what Harper's doing here. He's just trying to barrel things up and hit him right back on the same trajectory, because he knows that once he gets amped up, that barrel's going to drop a little bit more, and that's going to put him underneath.
Yeah. You said this to me once, that taking BP, it should be about 75%. Get a feel, if you will, right? That's correct. I mean, it seems like Bryce is getting a feel there on the video on the left.
Absolutely, and especially if you're working on mechanics, if you're working on something, you don't want to be 100%, because you're going to do what you were doing before. You're going to do what's in your DNA. So if you're trying to change, and that's a big part of, people ask, why are you a good teacher? Why are you able to communicate, or why are you able to get players to change? Because it's not just about information. You can go on the internet. Everybody's got information that confuses the heck out of me. And I do this every day.
Yeah.
It's how I communicate that information. How do I get a player to change the front shoulder, like you said? How do I get a player to flatten out and take this swing plane here?
Sure.
I had a kid, what a specimen. This kid came in from Louisiana a couple days ago, or early this week, and 6'4", 215 pounds. And his legs, we adjusted his legs, we liked his rhythm, we got him to sit behind the ball so his swing plane was better. He set our record in there. He hit the ball harder than our college guys. He was hitting at 103 point something miles an hour, 103.7 miles an hour.
Yeah.
This dude was awesome. but that was just 2 days of getting him to adjust his body posture, right? Because we had the right information, the right drills for him to do it. Now, is he seeking to be great? No. I mean, now he's got to learn how to adjust off-speed pitches. He needs to learn how to, recognize pitches, breaking balls. That's kind of what gives him concern. But now he's able to stay behind it and stay back more, and that's the first step.
Yeah. By the way, I noticed the legs more separated, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can see his back foot goes straight up. There's no pushing. There's no bug squishing with that back foot. It just comes straight up, and the more that back foot goes straight up, the more this knee comes in. The more this knee comes in, the more that hip can rotate through. Mm-hmm. If we look here, this is more realistic when he gets going, but he has a narrow base. But if you focus, if you focus here on his back foot, I mean, his knee is so violent coming down and in. Okay, and his toes are kind of into the ground there, his back leg, but his knee is so violent coming in that foot pops up. Okay, and I always tell people, listen, that a lot of people focus on the foot, and I tell players sometimes they'll do this too much, and I'm like, don't even move your foot. Okay, I want his back foot to look like this, and right now I'm working with a player, and his back foot does this times 2, like it slides all the way to here. I might tell that player, don't move it, stick it in the ground. And let's see what happens when they get their knee in. Well, I always tell players that the foot is like an earlobe. You can't move the earlobe by itself. You can move your head, and if your head moves, your earlobe will move. But you can't move the earlobe itself. And that's what I tell players is, look, hey, keep this guy grounded. Use this knee. This knee is going to pull the foot into position.
Yeah. Well, what about the hip snapping? Is that how does that correlate as well?
Yeah, so it's going to release this knee coming in. That's what creates the initial hip turn right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so when that knee comes in, his hips start to turn. And then as that knee continues and then this front knee pulls back, then these hips can really swivel through and explode and kind of snap through the swing.
Yeah. Can you go back to the timing window? You meant, and just kind of elaborate more on that, because you mentioned that earlier with both videos, the BP video when he's with the Phillies and the 18 home run with the Nationals. But the timing window seems to be bigger, obviously, with the BP swing, as we mentioned earlier. Not so much, though, I guess, with the Nationals swing. When he's with the Nationals, the home run.
It was still good, with the Nationals one. I mean, maybe we haven't done it here, but I've looked at, a lot of players that their timing window is about 4 inches, and that's not going to work. So at least Harper here on this one. Let me zoom out a little bit and then back in, so we even these up just a hair. So if we draw that same deal, I'm just going to slide this over. Enter ball. Okay, so here's the ball. Looks like if I follow the blur, it's about there, 4 or 5 degrees. So you can see, he can make contact back there, but he's going to make good contact here, right when his barrel's coming up. And then the cool part is he extends his left arm so well that he stays on it. So now he would have hit this ball even further here. Mm-hmm. And then he still could have hit it here. So that's a 3-ball window of destruction. But overall,
what's ideal? What's ideal? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he could have hit it there and fouled it off, right, or broken his bat. And he still is going to make contact back here. So let's not be fooled. His happiness is from here to here, but he could have at least battled with 2 strikes from there to there. He's going to make contact. So that's excellent, right?
What's the degrees of those 3 balls, the small square, though? What would you say?
It was, the pitch itself was 5 degrees coming down, and I believe his bat was 7, we said, going up here.
Okay. So the attack angle was 7.
I would say, it may have been, there's a 10-degree attack angle, so it's probably 10 where he hit it.
Okay.
And that's perfect, right? We talked about you want to be 10 at your front toes.
Uh-huh.
That's where he was. And then he probably would have been closer to 12 or 13 out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's important, too. You mentioned the front foot, too. He's hitting it right around that front foot where you want to hit that pitch that's kind of middle in there, thigh high.
Yep.
Good point of contact.
It is. And if it was, and he had to rush it, right? We saw him get his foot down early. But, ideally, if that pitch was really far in and you're not a freak like him with 90-mile-an-hour bat speed, you probably want to hit that a couple inches.
What would you say his bat quickness is? Because he does have tremendous bat speed, but
he's probably in that 0.15 range. We could see if it's better than that, 0.14 on some pitches. But most big leaguers are actually they're pretty similar. They're all pretty similar. They're within 1/100th of a second for the most part, maybe 2 if it's a backup infielder that's their first glove.
Yeah.
So kind of a cool way to check out different approaches in different environments, right? Here's a game environment. He's not thinking about his swing.
No.
He's like, I'm going to try to do damage. I'm going to take my stride. I'm going to get going on time, and I'm going to let it rip. And then here, maybe he's like, you know what? I'm going to work on hitting balls right over the pitcher's head. Boom. And you can see it's just a very simple swing. I'll blow this up, and then we can just kind of look at it. It's just simple.
Yeah.
Not crazy. Just, hey, it's BP, man. I'm going to find a barrel. Feels so good when I hit it off the barrel. That's what I'm going to do. Go back through the middle. Okay. And that's how most big leaguers train their first few rounds of BP that's what they're working on is that swing point. So going back to timing itself, because I think this is really important is, we talked early in this little analysis here is, what is rhythm? Rhythm starts here and it goes all the way to here.
Toe touch.
Load to launch. Yeah. Load is just this. Okay. Load is not a stride. Okay. Load is getting ready to stride. That's a load. He's pushing down into his back heel. He's sitting into his back glute and he's getting ready to lift his foot. So you can load anytime. Okay. You can load when the pitcher comes set. I'm going to load. Maybe he's going to slide step you. You got to get into that book or that back foot sooner to get ready to stride. Then, okay, now I can pick my foot up. Notice when he picks his foot up, where's the pitcher? Okay, this is similar. He's not throwing from 60 feet, but the timing is going to be similar at 60 feet. Okay, he's lifting his arm. The coach is lifting his arm there, and Bryce is lifting his foot there. Okay, then he's at the top of his stride here when the ball is released. That's the same as during a game. He's at the top. So now he can just sit here and read. Oh, it's inside. Boom, he drops his foot quick. Oh, it's slower. He keeps his foot in the air longer. But that's the key. You got to be at the top of your stride when that ball comes out of the hand right there.
Yeah.
And then all he's got to do is drop and go.
Sure.
Anyway, that's a good swing. That's a good analysis. We learned some awesome stuff in terms of, rhythm and timing and what makes this guy so successful.
Yeah. Yeah, that line drive, by the way, that doesn't have any topspin to it, does it?
No, I think he pretty much squared this guy up.
Okay.
Usually you can tell this point there's a net right in the way, but this point when he hits it one frame after contact, the ball is higher than the bat. There's the ball and there's the bat. After contact, that usually tells me it had backspin and not topspin.
Yeah.
It would be the opposite. The barrel would have been up here and the ball would have been down here if it had topspin.
So the ball has to be higher than the bat to tell if it's backspin. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And that usually just means we hit below the equator and our barrel stayed low through contact. So many people try to swing up right at contact, and that leads to actually a lot of topspin.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you stay too low through contact, you'll just pop it up to an infielder. But, I would say more players swing up too much through contact, whether they're rolling over their lead forearm or rolling their wrists or just swinging up too much to a high follow through, than players doing the opposite. Yeah. And that's why you see a pull side shift, because when players are early, they're swinging up more, and they'll hit a ground ball to the pull side versus a fly ball to the pull side.
Yeah, where you're paused right now, by the way, you're paused at the point of contact. If you just keep it there for a second.
Yeah, right there.
Right there, yeah. You know who that looks like right there? I'll tell you. If you ever see Ted Williams pause at point of contact, it kind of looks like his swing plane, his leverage, the feet, the chest, everything.
Yeah, the one thing that you would note, Williams would have dropped his barrel a little bit sooner. More like what Harper does in a game than this flatter one. And yeah, he does. Williams had a really strong top hand, left hand, and he would just flip that barrel through it. He would get slightly under. And I remember my dad telling me, I'm going to stop the analysis here for that, and we can just continue our podcast. But my dad would say, Williams told him he would hit line drives where the second baseman would jump and it hit him in the thigh. It had so much topspin on it because he would flip his hands. He'd hit it so hard, but he would flip his hands at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And Williams said it was always funny, to get to first base and, the guy showed him the bruise, the second baseman showed him the bruise. But he said, all those balls that I did that, I could have hit 9 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff right there. Again, the video will be uploaded to the Epstein Hitting YouTube page. And are you uploading it to Facebook as well?
I will upload the link to Facebook.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll put a shortcut to that on all our social media stuff.
Yep.
And that's usually the easiest place to find it. So you can go to YouTube or just check out our Facebook. What is it? Epstein Hitting, or Twitter Epstein Hitting, or the lab at the lab BCS. Any of those, I'll post that direct link to the analysis we did. It's a long one, 27 minutes. It just came back at
27, not bad. Still, nevertheless.
It's some quality stuff.
Yeah. So, and if you have, again, you can follow along, or you can just kind of listen. I think we did a pretty nice job there of painting the picture, doing theater of the mind there, and sort of explaining Bryce's swing with both the BP and the game swing. He does have a pretty, when he's going well, it is a pretty swing.
And he's a guy that's super streaky, right? I mean, what would consider somebody super streaky? Well, their swing, their happy zone, is somewhat minimized, and they have a big leg kick. Yeah. So when both of those match up, when he's seeing it well and his timing is on, he's going to get really hot. And then as soon as one of those factors, he starts dropping his barrel a little bit too much. Now all of a sudden, when he's an inch late, he fouls it back instead of getting a base hit.
Yeah.
Or if he gets his foot down at the wrong time and his swing isn't on plane, now it's doubly compounded. So, or that issue is compounded. That's when guys go into slumps and get really hot and really cold. So, if you can level off those peaks and valleys as a major league hitter or a hitter in general, then you pretty much know that you have a perfect combination of swing plane and timing.
We'll wrap up the show here. The All-Star Game is in Philadelphia in 2026. Does he have a chance? To win 2 home run derbies in his 2 separate ballparks, home ballparks, with 2 separate? He might in 2 separate teams in the same division. He may be the only guy in baseball history that has a chance to do that. 2026.
A lot of pressure you just put on him.
Well,
I mean, that's a lot of pressure. He'll be.
That place is a bandbox, though. So
correct. So what they'll have to do is get really soft baseballs for everyone else.
Yes,
like bean bags, and then because Bryce will be how old in 6 years? What's he going to be, like 32 or something?
32, 33.
Yeah. So he's going to be old.
Yeah, we consider that old, don't we?
Was that old? No, but I mean he'll be primed. That would be awesome.
That'd be fun. What do you see as the future with Bryce going forward here?
I think if he takes the pressure off himself, he's going to be fine.
Yeah,
I really do. I think he's in a good situation with Philadelphia. I think he's going to be playing for a good manager for him.
Yeah.
Girardi, I think it's going to be really good for him. I only see positives. I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he has a surrounding cast.
Yeah.
to kind of help him, because when you're a lone man on an island and you're making all that money, just ask A-Rod. He wasn't the only guy making money, but when he went to New York, he was kind of a different player, than he was when he was with Seattle and Texas, because of the money and the limelight. It makes it, East Coast media is not very forgiving.
No. The fan bases, they can be up and down, can be very, very tough as well, especially when you're making that kind of money. And by the way, he didn't have that bad of a year last year.
No.
I really don't believe he did. I just think there was these expectations of, well, he's going to hit 45 to 50 home runs. That's not going to happen. I don't think that'll ever happen. By the way, I think he.
Well, that's the problem. Is he's not living up to $30 million a year or whatever he got.
Yeah,
that's the problem. If he would have got $20 million a year, it would have been a great season.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you're the highest paid guy, and there's 30 other guys in the league that have similar stats than you.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's that's the problem. It's not that he underachieved. It's that the expectations with that contract made it seem like he underachieved.
And you don't get one MVP vote. That's a big thing too. And you don't make an All-Star team either.
Right.
Which, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our Bryce Harper Mechanical Breakdown series, Part 2. We'll be doing Part 3 in a few weeks down the line. We'll do another hitter. Next week, though, we'll be diving into the proper mental approach of a hitter, starting from pregame to when you arrive to the ballpark, pre arriving to the ballpark, pregame, batting practice, in-game, and then post-game, how you can kind of evaluate yourself a little bit. Maybe we'll dive into if meditation is a thing for athletes and baseball players as well when they're at home, or maybe at the ballpark. Maybe it should be added more. We'll be talking about that next week with the proper mental approach.
Yeah, just when I thought, this week was going to be my favorite because I love breakdowns, that one's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So we'll be doing that one next week. That'll be episode number 12. And again, you can get all of our episodes here, including this one, episode number 11. New episodes every Monday, 9 a.m. We are on Apple, Google, Spotify, Pandora now, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. We do have some clips on our SoundCloud page as well from previous episodes. So if you don't want to listen to the whole episode, you can listen to some clips on SoundCloud. Reach out to us on social media at Epstein Hitting, at Jim Tara, and send us your questions, JimboPodcast21 at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, everybody. Stay safe. Baseball's almost back, and we will talk to you next week.